You know what time it is? It's story time. I'm thinking this is becoming one of my favorite times of the week. I know spilling ink, I always say, is my favorite hour of the week, but I'm really, really enjoying getting to read to everybody and seeing that everyone's following along. So, yay! I love Sundays now. Hi, Joe. How you doing? Thanks for showing up. Thanks for following along. I hope you like this chapter today because it's going to be a fun one. I get to really let my nerd flag fly a little bit on this chapter because, as I said before, I'm a nerd, so I kind of gave Sage some of those little nerdy tendencies, and that's going to come out here. So, before I give away too many spoilers, why don't we just get to the reading? We are on chapter 11 for those who are following along, and I do still have my bookmark from Hunter. Oh, there's a couple people in the chat here. Let me say hi real quick. Hi, Regine! And Belinda, thanks for joining again. Welcome back. All right. Oh, fly free with the nerdery. Will do. Wait, there's another Joe. Joe has duplicated himself. All right, guys, ready? Let's get on to it. Chapter number 11. The hangover she expected from drinking too much the night before never came. A small win that Sage didn't dare question as she popped out of bed and had a look at the clock. The day had passed her by in a dreamless sleep, and her stomach ached for food. Matt had long since departed, leaving a note on the kitchen table next to a bottle of pills. Drink some OJ, take 2 of these. Doctor's orders. He really was the perfect man. She smiled to herself, thanking her lucky stars to have him in her corner. But juice and pills would not sustain her, and cooking wasn't something Mommy had ever had time to teach her. Her hunger demanded something much more substantial than a microwave dinner. Sage popped down to her favorite neighborhood pub and claimed her regular booth in the back corner. Is Loverboy meeting you here tonight? Julie asked as she came up with a beer and a bowl of chips to set on the table. What? No. What? Why would you say that? Before Sage could finish her sentence, Mr. Blue Eyes himself strolled into the bar. Shit! Sage ducked behind a menu. You need me to run interference? Julie asked with a restrained laughter. Or is that just nerves talking? Sage thought about it for a minute. Her eyes drifted over to his tight-fitting gray shirt, a black canvas jacket, and loose cargo pants. They were a far cry from the secret agent disguise that he had had the last time they met, but he still walked with that cocky swagger. Even his hair had a casual, slept-in wave, giving him a devil-may-care vibe that just screamed bad boy. Mr. Blue Eyes scanned the room, possibly looking for her. Damn, she was a glutton for punishment. Intuition said no, do not engage. But part of her was still wearing the leather pants and push-up bra showing maximum cleavage, desperately wanting a win. Just minor flirting over dinner was exactly the kind of ego boost she needed. So how about I give you a signal if he crosses the line? All right, just order a white wine spritzer and I'll know you're in trouble. Julie set down a mug of beer and dropped a bowl of chips on the table. What if I order a tequila sunset? Sage joked. You're on your own, babe. Julie snickered and headed back to the bar. Sage buried her head in the menu again, more to cover her embarrassment than anything else. She stuffed the chips into her mouth to stave off the growling of her belly, all the while trying to rein in her nerves. Found you. He appeared above the menu, smiling, as if it was some kind of inside joke. Looks like you're up to girl code tonight, too. The eagerness in his voice caught her off guard. This kind of thing never happened to her. She dated plenty of guys, not all of them good, but this one made her stomach do some somersaults. And though she hadn't eaten much, the pangs of hunger had all but vanished. Stalking me now? The words came out of her mouth before she could stop herself, but not before the awkward embarrassment settled into a nice bloom on her cheeks. Would you blame me if I said yes? He slid into the bar smoothly as he delivered the line, and her mouth fell open in stunned silence. But something tells me you're just as happy to see me as I am to have found you here tonight. And let me just say, he waved a hand at her, his eyes devouring every curve of the expensive bra highlighted. Damn. Name. Words floated above her, as if in a stupor that she just couldn't seem to grasp. And she couldn't seem to grasp as many as were needed to form a complete sentence. I was hoping you'd ask. You left in such a hurry yesterday, I thought I might have spooked you. You did. Sage found her voice, grounded in skepticism. I get that. I was here with a girl and then came and chatted you up. Looks pretty shady, huh? You said it, not me. She cracked a smile, and the pressure in her chest released. Nerves were a bastard like that, tying her tongue while choking the connection to her brain, making real conversation damn near impossible. But playful snarkiness always came out with ease. Zach, he said, and those icy blue eyes, and he set those icy blue eyes to work, daring her not to smile back at him. Sage, she replied stupidly. I know, he laughed. Did it again, didn't I? He cocked his head to the side in an adorable little move that made him look almost like a confused puppy. Open mouth, insert foot, she replied. Nah, you're just bolstering my ego a bit. I'll enjoy the compliment. See, I can read. Really, I can read. All right, somebody's keeping count, right? Because I don't know how many flubs that was already. Let's try that again. Open mouth, insert foot, she replied. Nah, you're just bolstering my ego a bit. I'll enjoy the compliment. Julie wandered up. Can I get you two something? Yeah, maybe another beer, Sage responded, hoping at some point that alcohol might effectively shut down the nerves. If not, she was doomed to sound like the village idiot all night. And for you? Julie asked Zach. He waved away the question like a buzzing fly. Nothing for me now. Not thirsty? Sage asked. Maybe later, he replied slyly. Julie met Sage's gaze for a moment, silently questioning whether or not she was okay. Always looking out. Sage sat down. Sage set down the menu. God, that's like she sells seashells down by the seashore. Ugh. Too many S's. Sage set down the menu, butterflies filling the space where hunger had once been, and answered Julie's concerns with a nod. Zach's eyes followed the movement of her hands, and she caught the familiar light as Slow down. Zach's eyes followed the movement of her hands, and she caught the familiar light in his eyes as they landed on her wrist. Not wanting to have that conversation again, she sent her hands to rest in her lap under the table. So, tell me about you, he asked after a moment of uneasy silence. Small talk, she cringed at the thought. Inane conversation meant to fill empty space. That was the worst. She would almost rather discuss how much her birthmark looked like a tattoo over topics like the weather or where she saw herself in 5 years. But as she met his eager expression, she knew that he was doing the awkward first date type thing, fishing for something to start a real conversation with. So she tossed him some bait. I'm a time-traveling alien from the planet Gallifrey. Where's your big blue box, then? He replied without missing a beat. Geekery was something that she could talk about for hours. His speedy response gave her hope. Maybe he was just as much of a nerd as she was. Good looks and good taste might even knock Matt out of his place as Mr. Perfect. You passed the first test with flying colors, but how do I know you're not an Imperial spy or something? She shot back at him, silently daring him to answer incorrectly. I am one with the Force, he smiled back at her. And among my other affiliations, I'm a browncoat as well, as part of the Rebel Alliance. You sound like a proper nerd, she laughed, feeling more at ease than she had that evening. I aim to misbehave, he waggled an eyebrow at her. Before I entrust you with my secrets, answer me this. Sage paused, reaching into the back of her databanks for nerdy trivia and catchphrases for something truly obscure. What comes after second breakfast? Well, 11sies, of course, he laughed, and she caught sight of those brilliantly white teeth, clearly a man who took care of himself. Then luncheon and afternoon tea. You don't need to know much more about me than that. Sage took a swig of her beer. I'm a total nerd. I don't know a man alive who doesn't appreciate a woman who knows her sci-fi or fantasy. Oh, really? She snorted in disbelief. Should I bring up the Princess Bride then? As you wish. But only if I can counter with Labyrinth. Oh, marry me, she snorted, and immediately realized how bad that was to say on a first date situation. She said it to Matt all the time, knowing it could never be misconstrued. But the awkward pause that followed slammed her right back into reality. I mean, you're like the perfect guy. You know the classics, am I right? Her backpedaling didn't stop Zach from looking like a deer in headlights. You have to have some appreciation for you have to have some appreciation for the fantasies of a man, he replied slowly, his words catching her a bit off guard. Truth is stranger than fiction, they say. Or that. So where do people come up with why can't I read today? Truth is stranger than fiction, they say. Or so where do people come up with the Goblin King, for example? Or trolls, or vampires for that matter? Sage shrugged, having never really given much thought to it. Fantasy was just make-believe. Reality is kind of harsh, I guess. We need some kind of escape. The idea of trolls being real had never been a consideration before, but then she had just witnessed her boss turn into one the day before. So what if all the stories that she loved had a basis in reality? What if they had been written by people who could actually see them? What if that guy, what did he call himself? Gray? Atera. If she had had any writing ability of her own, and I can't read today, good Lord. Okay, let's try this again. If she had any writing ability of her own, she'd put her stories on paper and see if it were worth selling. For that matter, if all of it was true, where's the doctor? Because she could definitely use a timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, big blue box to help her escape from the awkwardness that had developed in that silent pause. Escape is such a perfect word. His tone sharpened. Oh, I guess that was a page. Stuck for some reason. Don't mind me, I'm just talking to myself. She'd probably scared him off, so she offered him an out. Feel free if you need to go. Oh no, I would, but only if you join me. I came here tonight hoping that I could convince you to give me a chance. You don't have to go to a club or anything, maybe just a walk. There's a park nearby. What's wrong with sitting here? Her suspicions returned, setting her internal alarms off. Not even 5 minutes in and he was already angling for them to move to a new location? Your bodyguard keeps giving me the evil eye, Zach responded with a nod towards the bar. Julie had been keeping close watch since he arrived, probably waiting for the secret word to send in the cavalry to save her. She just wants to make sure I'm safe. Sage fiddled with her new necklace while she thought of something to say that might turn the conversation back to a lighter topic of fantasy. Can't be too careful, you know how it goes. Truth is so much stranger than fiction, he agreed. Across the room, Julie was holding a bottle of white wine, tilting it gently in the air. That won't help your case, Sage giggled as she shook her head. I guess not, but not everything is a horror story. He winked at her, and his eyes sank again to her hands. Cool necklace. Tree of life? Damn, he would have to ask a question she didn't know. I think so. Come on, fantasy nerd, he scoffed. You're wearing a mythical symbol around your neck. It is? I mean, yeah, it is. Nervous laughter wasn't helping her case. It was a gift, actually, from my mom. It's new. I was going to look it up. Can I see? He reached out, but as the tips of his fingers grazed the metal, he pulled back as if it stung him. Are you okay? You might want to have a jeweler look at that sharp edge. He smiled as he pulled his hand under the table. Pretty, though. And yes, tree of life for sure. Might as well turn in my geek card, eh? Sage hung her head in mock shame. I am disappointed, he chuckled. You just aren't the woman I thought you'd be. She lifted her gaze, and the moment she met his eyes, Sage knew it was a bad idea. Kryptonite for sure. Those things should come with a warning label. Story of my life. Come on, let's get out of here. I know how you can find redemption. He was trying so hard to get her to leave. Was Julie's mad dogging really that intimidating, or was there some other ulterior motive? How? I know this awesome little cafe and a bookstore not far away from here. They have a whole section of occult mythology. Let's look up that symbol. The more you know, right? He flashed that award-winning smile once more, and she caught the sharp edge of his teeth. The prospect of a fact-finding mission in a cafe bookshop in a public place minimized the danger enough for enough to have her seriously considering it. Walking distance? She asked. About a block or two. You got comfortable shoes? He stood and held out a hand to help her out of the booth. Why not? Sage stood on her own without accepting his assistance. Lead the way. She waved to Julie on her way out, asking to have the beers put on her tab. They knew she was good for it. Sage ate almost every meal there. She was more than good for it, and Julie didn't argue about the tab, but the look on her face as it hit Sage. Julie didn't argue about the tab, but the look on her face as Sage hit the front door said she clearly didn't approve of her leaving with Zach. The sun had set only a few hours before, but already the night had cooled into double digits. Still hot, but much more manageable than the blistering heat of the day. They walked a little way down the road, heading away from the bar towards Sage's apartment complex. She thought hard, trying to picture a bookstore close to where she lived, but came up blank. As they headed deeper down the street, far away from the shops and into the quiet residential area, she began to wonder if she'd made a terrible mistake. Before she could give voice to her concerns, she realized that her escort had disappeared. He'd been right there, only a moment ago. Where? How? Sage turned around and around again, searching for Zach, calling out his name. When there was no answer, panic sent her heart racing. She had made a terrible mistake. She couldn't head for home and risk Zach following her, and she couldn't stay where she was alone in the dark street. Sage kicked herself for not realizing it sooner. Internal alarms were never wrong. No matter how good-looking or nerdy a guy was, intuition was always right. She decided that she better head back to the bar and the safety of friends in public space. She'd call Matt as soon as she got there and wait until he came home. She wheeled about and headed back towards the bar. Minutes went by in terrifying slowness, with only the sound of her feet hitting the pavement breaking the silence. Then she heard him. From a distance, he called out her name, and Sage stopped and turned around. She caught a blur, then the flapping of cloth on the wind, and before her eyes could focus through the darkness, something struck her. Pain, like she hadn't experienced before, ballooned across her skull. The world went sideways as the ground came up hard to greet her. And that's where we're stopping today. So what did we think of this chapter this week, guys? Any thoughts on this? Let me go through the list here. How many? 1, 2, 3. We got 6 real fast. Yeah, for some reason, I'm just tripping over my tongue today. I don't get it. Just figured out the bad guy in the story, and it's not Katie's reading. I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but I doubt it is actually entirely impossible for you to have figured it out yet. 9. Oh my God. No. Good chapter. Ominous. Yes. It's always great when your character gets knocked unconscious at the end of a chapter, because now you have to wait a whole week to find out what happens. What could possibly have happened to poor Sage? 11Z. I told you I was going to let my nerd flag fly. I had so much fun having to narrow down actually the nerdy references for this one, because there were so many that I wanted to throw in there. And for those of you who know the series, who have read it already, you know that it is entirely packed with pop culture references. So this is just the beginning. Actually, no, the first chapter with Sage and Matt was just the beginning. But you're going to see a lot more from here on out. I always want to bust Zach in the mouth. Just here? I think nearly every time that Zach and Sage encounter each other, she wants to throw a good right hook at him. Exciting. Oh, good. Glad you liked it. That makes me happy. Like I said, I look forward to this time because I'm enjoying reading it for you guys, and I enjoy the fact that there are people listening. So you guys make it all that much better for me, and I hope that the story, even with all of my little author flubbing, isn't too off-putting. I'm hoping you're laughing right along with me as I'm just kicking myself for being stupid and for not reading simple words on the page. The first time here. Yeah, yep. Yeah, Zach's one of those characters I think you just want to punch him in the mouth. He's not the only one, though. He's not the only one. But he is definitely a character that can really get under your skin. So, Joe, since you said that you've just figured out the bad guy in the story, let's hear your prediction. Who have we met so far? We've met Sage. We have met Mark. We have met Matt. We have met Julie. We have met Gray. We've met Zach. And I'm forgetting someone here. Who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting somebody. Oh, it's going to kill me. I should know. Brain fart moment. I'll figure it out after I close down the session, and I'll be like, damn it, I should have said that. So yeah, Joe, if you're still listening, who do you think is the villain at this point? And I know Rebecca has read it, so Rebecca, no spoilers. No spoilers. Devin, thank you. The trainer. I can't believe I forgot him. So yeah, you've met quite a few characters so far. The trainer. Oh, yes, her boss, the troll. That's right. Yeah, so there's been quite a few characters. I will say you have not met them all yet. So there's still a few to be. Yeah, that was Mark. Mark was not her dad, the surrogate. And we didn't actually meet the gnome. We saw the gnome. We didn't actually meet him, though. So not a real character, just kind of a vision. But yeah. So if you have any guesses at this point, make a guess. I know when I did the beta reading of this, I did it in chunks, and I sent it out to my beta readers saying, do you have an idea of who the villain is? And every time that they read a chunk of it, they would guess. And my hope was that they would guess wrong, because I don't want the villain to be somebody that's too obvious. I want it to be one of those, oh my God moments when you get to it. So as I was going through, I made sure that anytime any one of my betas were like, oh, it's this person, if they were right, I would go back through and I would kind of smooth it out a little bit better so that it wasn't as obvious who that person was, because I want it to be a pretty good surprise by the end. And there are still characters you have not met yet. So any guesses you make today, don't assume they are correct, because you still have to meet a few other people. But I hope it's enjoyable. And again, I thank you all so much for following along. That's what makes me happy to do this every week, is knowing there's people out there listening and enjoying the story and sharing your time with me. You know, you don't have to share your time with me, but you're here and you do this. And that is so important, and it means so much to me. So thank you guys so much. And we got another week ahead of us. I know right now it has been a very stressful time for everybody, and it's probably not going to ease up for a little while. Just try and remember to take care of yourself. Try and remember to take a little bit of time each day to do something that you can enjoy, that you can relax with, and we'll eventually get through these trying times. And I hope to see you again next week, because you guys make it worth it for me, and I really enjoy that. So thank you again for spending time with me. I hope you guys have a great week. I will talk to you again next Sunday with chapter 12. And until then, try and just relax. All right. We'll all get through these tough times. See you then.